fight for love in this neighborhood. No water can put out this fire. Only the Lord is Savior. Come in this neighborhood. If you follow politicians, you'll never come far. You follow politicians, you will never come far. You follow politicians, you will never come far. Jah Rastafari, He's the Savior. If you follow politicians, you'll never come far. You follow politicians, you will never come far. You follow politicians, you'll never come far. Jah Rastafari, He's the Savior.
So they want I to change my identity. Musically. So they want I to change my identity. Musically. Some music race, commercial race, political race. Some music race, commercial race, political race. So they want I to change my identity. Musically. So they want I to change my identity. Musically. My identity. Your work must be done. 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 Work in the east, work in the west, work in the north, work in the south, work over there, we work over here, work everywhere, work over there, we work over here, we work everywhere. So they want I to change my identity. Musically. So they want I to change my identity.
All right, let me say a special greetings, a special hello, a special welcome to all of you locked into that space at this time. It is just about 5 minutes past that good old hour of 6 o'clock in Dominica and the rest of our region, that is the Caribbean region. That is, again, those of you in the region, greetings and welcome. Those of you further afield as well, we know we have folks listening in the UK, America, China, as far as, you know, the social media thing can reach. We know we have folks all across the globe at this time. So a special greetings, hello, and welcome to each of you at this time. It's, as I said, it's just moving 6:05, and so that is where we got to make a start with our Civic Vibes program that is aired each and every Sunday from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock right here on that space. Brother Alvin Thomas is here, the co-host of the program. He's already here, and so we'll be talking to him in just a while. We also have our special invited guest here in the name of Mrs. Rosie Felix, a woman of valor, I call her, a woman of worth. Also a patriotic woman at that. And so just a while, you'll be hearing from Mrs. Felix in just a while as well. Remember, folks, our program here this afternoon, it is streamed live via YouTube and also Facebook, that is. And the numbers to call in to chime in on the conversation, just in case you have something to say, the numbers are 245-2396 or 615-9470. Remember as well, you can also pick up any program that you missed on our podcast as well. These programs are recorded and so they are live on our podcast, so you can get them on the go as well. So please, you don't have an excuse to say that you did not know indeed. Yes, let me now move across without further ado to Brother Alvin Thomas to say hi and hello to him. Alvin, greetings and welcome, brother.
Yes, Lofty, good afternoon. Good afternoon, my brother. Good afternoon. Good to have you again another Sunday afternoon on our Civic Vibes program. Pleasant good afternoon to you in sunny DA, I must say. I heard the rain has stopped and you've gotten some sunshine.
Yes, we had a little more sunshine today, yes.
That's good, that's good, good, yeah. On my neck of the wood, I'm doing fine as well. Good weather in the 90s, I must say. So a good Sunday afternoon. So pleasant good afternoon to all of those who have already locked in. I see our Facebook page is lighting up here like anything else. It's like a Christmas tree already. All the lights are on. And to join you as well and say a special good afternoon to my good old friend there, Rosie. I haven't seen her in a little while. We go way, way back. So it's good to see you, Rosie. Let me just say though that, Lofty, and I'm sure you'll agree with me in that, women has always been the forebearers in the movement towards change. And that goes way, way, way back in history. Sometimes history doesn't always record it as they should, and you find the name of the men are always mentioned. But I can tell you, from way back, starting on the plantation and history, women has always been the organizers and the forebearers. And there are many, many women names you will hear that like the Underground Railway in America started off with by a woman. So I'm great to have Rosie there. I know she's one of those in Dominica that's going to be the forebearers in bringing about the change that we're looking for. So good to see you, Rosie. And again, looking forward to another great conversation this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, Rosie, again, as I normally tell people, when the Dominican history will be read, because it is being written right now, your name, Rosie Felix, as a woman will be etched right there, so that persons, who will be around at that time will remember and know your works and how you imparted good vibrancy to a patriotic duty to your country. So, Rosie, again, I want to say a special good greetings to you and welcome to Civic Vibes. It's your first time, right?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Okay,
it is. And thanks for
welcome.
the opportunity.
Yes, welcome, Rosie. For those who out there who maybe don't know, have an idea who is Rosie, can you just start by, a brief introduction of yourself, please?
Well, as you've already said, my name, Rosie Felix, a nurse by profession, a nurse and a midwife by profession, and I'm married to Rani Felix. I've got 4 wonderful adult children. I have resigned from the public service, but I'm in private practice for a few years now. I'm also entrepreneur, online entrepreneur. So, looking to multiple streams of income, and not only from our local economy, but tapping into the global economy. But very importantly, or in addition, I'm an advocate, and very early in my nursing profession, I developed the passion for speaking out for justice and people who don't have a voice. So it's no wonder, that I'm not afraid of speaking up for anything that is just, and certainly speaking up for Dominica.
Yes, indeed, Rosie, that is the woman that I know you to be. And thank you very much for, taking time of your Sunday afternoon to be here with us this afternoon. Folks, this afternoon, just before I go to the live feed so that Alvin and I can, touch base with you guys out there, because we always cherish your presence each and every Sunday. We'll be continuing on a much talked about conversation in Dominica for some time. If memory serves me right, it basically took steam from 2008. We are 2023. That's like 15 years and counting that we are on that situation where we are talking about, we are exposing free and fair. And this afternoon, we add in transparent elections with it. These tenets are the foundation of any democratic country. And that is what the topic is this afternoon. And Mrs. Felix is going to help us navigate through how free, fair, and transparent elections, especially general elections, how they are first and foremost the foundations of democracy, and also even more importantly, how they can strengthen any democratic rule in any part of the world as we speak. So that will be under the microscope this afternoon. Alvin, take a first knock at the live feed in terms of some of our folks that we have here.
Yes, certainly, Lofty. Certainly, like I said, the social media platform or Facebook platform is lighting up. We see Mali Austria is already there with us, one of our regulars. Good evening to everyone. Good evening, Mali. Good to have you. And we have Manuelin Pierre. I hope I got that right.
Yes, Manuelin Pierre. Yes.
Yes, and she is from the VIs. Then we have Marlon Shillingford saying good afternoon, and also Ashby Scotland, Brina Francis, Lucina Thole, Franklin Timothy, another regular Dave Butron saying good evening, Lofty Alvin Rosie and the listening public. Good evening, Dave. Good to have you. Judith Cochran is also there, as well as Caroline Warrington. Of course, Adi Paul is there from New York City. And we have Kayleen Saunders, Mavella Defoe, Lauren Lestrade, and Elsa Louis Gomes, also another regular. Go ahead, Lofty. See who you can.
Yeah, Eliza Louis Gomes. That is our good friend down there. Always tuned into Civic Vibes. Good afternoon to you.
Absolutely.
We also have Lauren Lestrade. You mentioned that lady as well. David Joseph is also there. Ivenia Joseph, Juanita Prince, Dave Bertrand, Marvella Defoe, Kellen Sanders, Claralyn Warrington, Judith Cochran, you mentioned already. Joan Muna James, she's looking as well. Judith Cochran, yes. Franklin Timothy, Lucina McDowell Thole, Carol Olivachi Bruni, Marvella Defoe, Brian Francis, Brother Ashby Scotland, you're also there. John
Christine
Harry,
Nicholas,
Olivia Esprit, you mentioned Manuelin Pierre. We also have Fabi Jones. He said he's locked in and he's watching, I think, from St. Lucia, he said. I think that is the note I saw earlier. Christine Nicholas, Mr. Bernard Aline in the UK at this time. You know, all these folks are there. So folks, as we move along, your duty, it is to share that information, share the live, make others know that Mrs. Felix is on, and the topic we're discussing this afternoon in terms of a continuation of the discussion, it is free, fair, and transparent general elections, that is. We are saying they are the foundations of any democratic country. So that will be our focus this afternoon as we're about to take flight, as it were.
Yeah, and you know, Lofty, we cannot underestimate the fact that all of those folks we've called there, and many more that will be logging in, do that religiously with us every Sunday. And why do they do that? They do that because they too want to see a difference in Dominica. They too are concerned with the conversation that we're having, so that they will take the time out of the VIs where they are, out of London, like Bernard Allen is all the way in London right now. Take that time off wherever they are, Houston, Texas, New York, and tune in with the intention of being a part of the conversation and desperately wants to see something different and something better for Dominica. That's the reason why they're there. Otherwise, they could have taken their Sunday and do something else, like many of us. You know what I'm saying? So we really want to say thank you for all of you who have logged in. And as Lofty say, share the light, share the information. Let's not do like the verse in the Bible where they were given the talents and some of them take that talent and buried it. We need to go and spread that talent, spread the word, share the word, and try to change hearts and minds, as I sometimes see on this program, so that we can have a better Dominica, not just for us, but for generations and generations to come. So good afternoon to all of you, and certainly it's a pleasure to have all of you here with us this afternoon to join in the conversation.
All right, Alvin, thank you very much. Well, we have our special invited guest, as I said, Mrs. Felix, she's here. And so, Rosie, can we just stick to Rosie for the discussion sake this evening?
Of course.
Okay, so Rosie, of course. Rosie, in terms of the topic for discussion this afternoon, can you set the platform or the foundation, and Alvin and I will try to follow?
Great. I'd like to give it a Bible context. Of course, we know that in the Bible days, there was not election as we know it, but the selection of the king was a sacred thing. And I'm referring to Samuel, the first book of Samuel, chapter 16, when King Saul was rejected, and the Lord called his prophet Samuel to anoint a new king. And in a short couple verses, I've been able to identify a free appointment, not a free appointment, an appointment of a new king where it was free, it was fair, and it was transparent. And I will help you to understand why I use this Bible passage to set the tone. So fairness and transparency and integrity has been, first of all, these are Bible principles, and it's been around for a long time. So Samuel took a couple witnesses because the Lord had told him who he should anoint to replace King Saul. So he took some witnesses with him. So we can say already that's, transparency, to go to find the new person that he should anoint as the new king of Israel. So that's transparency right there, because God had asked him to go and offer sacrifices, and then anoint the new king. And he did just that. On arrival to the house of Jesse, he was supposed to select to anoint the new king, and he asked Jesse for his sons, because among Jesse's sons, he should be appointing or anointing the new king. So Jesse had 7 sons, and the prophet Samuel, as Jesse presented each son, the prophet said, no, it's not this one. And he presented another, and he said, it's not this one. And each one he presented, he said, that's not the one. And he asked, are these all your sons? Jesse said, there is still one. There's still one. He's out, he's young, and he's out tending the sheep. So we can see already there was a candidate that was supposed to be on that election ballot that was not there. And Jesse would not go on with the anointing until all the candidates were there. So Samuel. So Jesse sent for his last son, who was David, and brought him. And then Samuel said, this is the one, and anointed him as the new king of Israel. Now, David was not paid. He was not bribed. He was not given anything by the Lord, nor by Samuel, nor by his brothers, nor by his father, not by anyone, so that his anointing of king was free as the Lord wanted it. Of course, the Lord was the sole decider in this, but the prophet Samuel, as well as Jesse and his sons, had to cooperate with the Lord. Notice the 6 brothers of David, while I bet they wish they were the chosen ones, None of them rushed ahead and decided it is I, and they were honest, or Jesse was honest in saying, I have another son. He did not hide that son because he was the youngest. So everything in that short passage, it was an election that took place. It was an election of the Lord. It was free, it was fair, it was transparent, and Israel had got the king that the Lord wanted to give them. In Dominica, our elections have not been free and fair and transparent, and so not gotten legitimate governments that we want. I want to quote the Interparliamentary Union in its Universal Declaration on Democracy. It states, and I quote in part, in any state, the authority of government can derive only from the will of the people as expressed in genuine, free, and fair election. So there you have it. For government to be legitimate, elections must be genuine, it must be free, it must be fair.
Give us that quote again, Rosie. Give us that quote again, please, and tell us where it's coming from.
Yes, so it's the Interparliamentary, or rather International Parliamentary Union. So it has a Universal Declaration on Democracy. And this particular declaration, I quote in parts. It says, in any state, the authority of the government can derive only from the will of the people as expressed in genuine, free, and fair election.
Wow,
so
that's
not a
powerful.
fake election,
That's powerful.
not a sham election. It has to be authentic. It has to be free. It has to be fair.
You mentioned the word will, or you mentioned the phrase rather, will of the people. Rosie, you're a person, you are on the ground, as it were, in Dominica. How would you describe, or what would you say about the will of Dominicans during our past electoral processes? The will. Can you genuinely say that the will of Dominicans came through?
No, because we know for a fact that according to our current election regulations, that persons on Dominica people must be residing on the island for a specific period of time to be eligible to vote. So when we have large numbers of people coming in and they're not eligible, even if their names on the voters list, and that's because the commission did not do its job, then they have influenced the election. Additionally, when people are bribed, and what the scripture says about being bribed, and I want to quote Exodus 23:8, and you shall take no bribe, for a bribe blinds the discerning and perverts the words of the righteous. Another translation says, you shall not take a bribe, for a bribe blinds the clear-sighted and subverts the cause of justice. So when people are bribed, deep in their heart, what they want to do, they can no longer do it, because when they have accepted bribes, it blinds them. They see something else other than what they really had intended to see, or the decision that they had intended to take. And and that already takes us to campaign financing, when when the field, the ground is not a level playing field. So
you're vegladen. You're vegladen.
That's it. That's it. Cotton wool over the eyes.
I know.
Yeah. Lovely. I had one colleague told me 1 year she accepted, and I've heard other people, talk about that, but this particular person told me to my face. So while it was hearsay for other people, but here was this example, and this colleague who told me she had accepted some gift or whatever, and in her heart she wanted to go there and vote for party X, but while she was there in that polling station, she felt a force, and she just could not bring herself to vote for the party she had intended to, and rather she voted for the one that had given her the gift. So it really blinds, and people tell you that, well, you gave this person, give that to me, I cannot go against them, I cannot do this, I cannot do that. So it clouds your judgment. So that basically people are coerced. When you bribe, you are coercing me, you are intimidating me. We've heard people been told, I will know if you don't vote for me. That's a threat, that's an intimidation. So this influences how people vote. So hence I stand by
True.
There's
another word that you use there that caught my attention. Alvin, just now you'll come in, is genuine elections. It is key to any functioning democracy. Can you just elaborate on the need for the genuineness of any electoral process like our elections in Dominica?
Sure. Of course, here in Dominica, our elections cycle is every 5 years. And well, genuine already means honest, true, good intention.
Yeah.
Good intention. And it must have all the characteristics of a free and fair election. But as long as you're missing those things, and in the case of our last election, an election is supposed to be a competition. It's supposed to be a competition by among those who qualify. And if you have persons not taking part, and in this case in Dominica, the opposition parties not taking part in an election, you also have an election being called prematurely, and we all know now that the government did not want to have, or wanted to extend their time in office rather than to face an election with the electoral reform that we've been asking for. So it's not genuine. The intention was bad. So all these things in combination made us, and that's why the term or the election has been labeled as a sham election. In other words, the opposite of genuine is sham.
True. Yeah. Alvin, you have been listening, you have been hearing.
Yeah. Yes, Lofty. Can you hear me?
We're not hearing you, unfortunately.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah. No, I mean, so far, Rosie has been doing pretty well. I mean, she started off, using some scripture verses, which, and you know what, when sometimes we have scripture verses, we try to say, oh, well, this is something away from us. But scripture verses all helps with you as a person as living. It's part of our living. And I think she's done a very great job in referencing it the way she put it. But I wanted to say, though, on the question of the bribery, which she mentioned, and the examples that she gave with the interaction she had with this individual. Lofty, anything that is bribe is dishonest. It's evil. It's not good. It carries an evil force with it. There is good and there is bad. If something is unjust, if something is evil, if something is not good, it carries that evil force. Hence the reason why when this person may have gone to the poll, knowing that in their heart of heart they did something that was wrong, something that was evil, it's going to have that evil force with her. It's going to manifest itself. And I mean, that in itself could be for a different topic, but it clearly shows you that not anything that is bad shows up being bad and reflects bad in the person who conducts that evil doing. So certainly bribery is a huge thing in the elections. And as long as that continues, we will never have free, fair, and a transparent or authentic or genuine election. And like she said, it goes back to this whole question of campaign financing. When we have those conversations, people feel, well, oh, they're just talking, they're just saying whatever they want. But it's not that. I mean, in the 2019 election, which we mentioned on that program before, the Labour Party government or the Labour Party as a party spent 24.96 million US dollars. That's equivalent to well over 72 or 76 million EC dollars. I mean, that's a lot of money, Lofty. If the population of Dominica is 72,000 persons, that's $1 million per citizen to spend on an election, on average, $1 million per citizen. That's a lot of money. And then you ask the question, which I'm sure you don't need to sit down, whether you sit down at the back of the blackboard or in front of the blackboard, how does the Labour Party that we know in Dominica is able to get 76 million EC dollars to run an election? And if they didn't raise that money or that money came from elsewhere, who paid the piper and who will be calling the tune? So these are real issues that must be addressed. So I just wanted to make those points, but so far I think Rosie is doing quite well, and I'm just going to sit back and listen to her, and off and on we'll, ask a question or two or come in with one or two comments. But so far, I think the conversation is going quite well.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much. Some persons will be taking your comments in a while. Remember, folks, if you want to call into the program, the numbers are 245-2396. I'll plug those numbers in the live feed in just a while. And also the DG line 615-9470. Again, I repeat, 245-2396 or 615-9470. Your comments are indeed welcome. Rosie, elections are basically about people. Democracy are basically about people. How would you now intertwine the whole topic where the people who are participating in that activity called an election? How would you address or advise persons? Well, let's leave it to a Dominica context for now. How would you address or advise Dominicans as to what should be done before, during, or even after a general election?
Certainly, the people are without voters, no election. And You're right, people, the voters, the citizens, we play a very pivotal role in elections. And what you're doing here and you do every Sunday is already one of the things that people should avail themselves to learn, to be educated, to be empowered, so they know what are the characteristics, what are the key elements of free, fair, and transparent election. Maybe some people may say they don't know if they participated in something that way. They may say that they did not know. So yes, before an election, people should know who are the legitimate people representing, seeking to represent them in office. They should know that. They should know the rules, the regulations about who should qualify, so that if a candidate presents themselves to run and the person does not meet the criteria, that the citizen should say, no, you do not meet the criteria, and we do not want you to represent us, and pressure that candidate. So that's already one thing, because the people should have the final say. people should know what are the divisions, and the constituencies, and what is required of them.
Just before you go to the constituencies aspect, Rosie, in terms of the knowing that you spoke about, which is very critical, do you subscribe to debates among persons who are aspiring to serve people?
Definitely, because that's where candidates, side by side, and not only dominating in one space, present their plans. And if we're talking about international standards, that is one of the elements of the international standard of election campaign. Everywhere, leaders debate. We were taught debating was a very big thing when I was growing up, and you have persons who develop their public speaking skills, from debating, arguing, advantages and disadvantages. So people are only getting one side, and without anybody challenging anybody, nobody's questioning anybody. It's the information becomes limited and biased. So people should require the candidates from opposing parties to debate. That should be a big thing.
And yes, it should be a big thing in Dominica, Rosie. And it is a big thing because we are well aware in Dominica, for example, when America elections coming up, and we have these town halls, we have these debates, these presidential debates. Dominicans, Rosie, Dominicans, Alvin, we are glued to our TV sets to hear what an aspiring politician in America have to say to Americans. But in Dominica, we are depriving ourselves of that kind of information from the persons who will be able to set policies and basically govern our lives for the next electoral cycle.
Absolutely.
So I just find it kind of really
ironical.
Yeah, it's kind of a warped kind of thinking. And some of the same people, Alvin and Rosie, they will tell you, let me watch my language here. Ki diab debate, sir. What debate you talking about? You don't see the man is the best man to run the country. And that kind of a low sort of output
expectation
where the citizenry is concerned, it is very, very alarming. So Rosie, I just want to thank you for stressing the point that debates among politicians aspiring for high office, it is so crucial. It is so critical.
Yeah. I think to the Lofty, if I may add very quickly though, I think what we have seen over the years, unfortunately, is that campaign has become more vulgar and mépris. Vulgar and mépris. And that is so unfortunate. And like Rosie said, election should be an opportunity for us to weigh both sides and to make, and for the people to make some sort of decisive decision on the way forward of the country. A democracy without people's involvement and engagement is no democracy. For democracy to survive, it must require the engagement and involvement of people.
That's
and it's through the debates you would have that. But what we've seen over the years, I mean, even this last quote unquote sham election, you didn't even have, as would normally be the case, a manifesto. There wasn't one in print, neither there was one online. So the incumbent government that was asking the people's vote to serve again did not present to the people a manifesto saying, well, okay, we're going to build you a train, an airport, a hospital, 5 schools. We did not have one in print, neither there was one online. So you could say, well, okay, we upgrade. You can't find a copy in print, but if you go online, you will see what our plans are for the next 5 years of manifesto. That shows you the extent to which we were insulted as a people. And not even a plan that they could present to the people and say, hey, this is my plan for the reset that we're talking about. This is what I plan to do for the next 5 years. So clearly our democracy is at a very terrible state.
True.
Yes,
And just to, yes, go ahead,
Alvin,
Rosie.
another point, certainly debates can have a role to play in raising the standard of our campaign. So even if people are not in the same room, debating, when they're on their platforms, they will bear in mind that at some point we have to face the people on the same platform, and we have to maintain a certain level of decorum, so
Yes.
I think that would elevate the level of the standard of our campaign as well.
Yeah, and not just that, even sticking to the whole point of debating. Debating is so critical in that you now get to connect with whoever is putting up themselves to represent you. You know how that person may function under pressure. You will get to know more about that person in terms of how they bring out their messaging, because messaging is key. You will know certain traits of that person by just listening and watching them go through that debating process. And for too long, Rosie, for too long, Alvin, we have been changing ourselves in that regard. And I hope that we have a new breed, a new injection of not politicians per se, of persons who are willing to serve their communities, their constituencies, and bring back the standards, as it were. Bring back the good old days. Bring back what we knew before. Alvin, you touched the manifesto. I haven't seen a manifesto in Dominica for ages. And a manifesto is basically, my understanding, a plan, a contractual arrangement with the people that you are supposed to be representing. And that is what the people should hold you by, the standards set in your manifesto. So if you tell the people there, I am promising you to build you a school, I am promising you to make your healthcare system better, I am promising you to erect a water plant, you now have that contract, that plan, so that you can go back to your representative and say, Mr. Representative, Madam Representative, what about the bottling plant you promised us? And there now would be that relationship between constituent and representative in terms of representation now. So you now can hold that person feet to the fire. But the way we have it in Dominica of late, Rosie, is sort of like wash your foot and come. And it cannot be. Rosie, I yearn for the days when we would, sort of see the light again and go back to the good old days where people who put themselves up for office, they're supposed to be a certain standard. They're supposed to be a certain level of responsibility, and not this kind of mama guy thing. They're on your train today, they all over your WhatsApp, they all over your telephone. And then when they get into office a week after, you calling them and you cannot see them. They're basically ducking and dodging. We have to get back to those days where we hold our leaders who are in these positions responsible so that they will execute on our behalf. Anything less, anything short of that is a mumbo jumbo.
But Lofty, when you are bought, then again you are blinded, and after the election, you don't feel that responsibility to ask anybody to account for anything, because in the first place you have been tainted. You participated in tainting the process. So if I'm tainted, how do I call you to account? If you are my new parliamentary representative and you bought my votes, how do I call you to account? You may say to me, remember, you better hush your mouth. I gave you this, I gave you that, I gave you $500, I gave you so much. You better shut up. Mm-hmm. So that's, and you said we need to see the light. You're right, because it's so much darkness involved. And as we refer, I can't help but refer into that, and that's a powerful scripture about bribe. It pulls wool over your eyes. We're in a dark place. We're in a dark place, and we need the light, and for people to realize it's not enough to say it's my right to vote who I want. Of course, it is your right, but is it your right as people who say you are God fearing? Is it your right as people of God to participate in elections that are not free, not fair, not transparent, not genuine? You have as far as I'm concerned, you have violated your rights. You have violated your right, because your right to vote should be free. It should be, you should not be coerced. You should not sell your vote. You should not be bought. And so if you have participated in all of that, you have violated your own right to do what is supposed to be sacred, free, nobody forcing you, nobody pressuring you. You hear all the conversations, all the arguments on both sides, and then you make your decision based, I don't even like to say on conscience anymore, because some people have no conscience. So, but based on the rules and integrity, and what is it you want for the country, not just for yourself, you alone. People vote based on what they want personally, what they want for their family alone, and not what the country needs. So these factors, influence how people vote, and they vote against themselves.
Indeed, indeed. Folks, we're having a very candid conversation, a very open, honest conversation here with Mrs. Felix, Rosie Felix, that is, an advocate for truth, an advocate for justice, an advocate for righteousness. She's a midwife, practicing midwife, that is. And so we're having that conversation. So the numbers to call, they are 245-2396, 615-9470. The lines are now open before we take that all-important break at the midway at 7 o'clock this evening. Rosie, another question I want to ask you, heretical question, that is, we have been hearing it talk lately that this thing about the electoral reform talk, or making Dominica elections freer and fairer, that in and out of itself, it is not the golden rule. A lot more should be said, can be said about where we are in Dominica. Some persons mentioned the economy, the languishing economy. That should be given prominence more than just electoral reform. Can you speak to that?
Looking back at this past 20 years, everything we think that's a priority, economy, healthcare, our youth, if we don't have electoral reform, we're not going to have reform and priority in anything else. And in the last few weeks, healthcare has been one of the important topics people are talking. I don't see we have healthcare reform without electoral reform that would bring us a change of leaders, where people really want to invest in health, invest in youth, invest in the economy. In my opinion, many people speak about a Labour Party government that's incompetent. I don't agree. We do not have an incompetent government. We have a government that has strategically planned things, design things, so that people can be dependent on them. The institutions can be less independent, and we just have confusion in the land. So let's wait for health reform. Without election reform, we'll never get it. You know what that affects election, free and fair election, and it's significantly affects healthcare, is corruption. There's no doubt about it. Corruption affects healthcare, and corrupt people do not want free and fair election. So that's my take. Economy, if we want to see the economy go somewhere, we have to push for that electoral reform. And so we can choose people that we want when we want them. And when we're tired of them, we change them. And if the new ones we put, they're messing up, we are free to change them again. That is the way it's supposed to be. But
Rosie,
economy, healthcare, our youth and education.
Yes, go on.
Yes, these are not, we're not going to have significant reform in these areas unless we have reform, general reform, where we can have free and fair election and choose the people that we really want to move Dominica. Like the ordinary man says, for Dominica to grow, the leader must go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Rosie, you are really hitting on all cylinders tonight. I must tell you that the live feed it is buzzing, and so we'll be taking some comments from there in just a while. You mentioned about people putting themselves up to serve people, Rosie, and that is a key point that you mentioned. Another very practical question I need to ask you, Rosie. Do you think, and we're talking about across the board now, not just Labour, we look at Dominica's political landscape as is now. Do you think, Rosie, that from the Dominica Labour Party standpoint, from the United Workers Party standpoint, from the Freedom Party standpoint, and whatever party out there are, do you think that we have the best in terms of these people as part of these organizations putting up themselves to represent the people's interests?
I believe we have very good people who are genuine, and there are also some that are not genuine. But again, when people put themselves up for public office, they should have that conversation and engage people, and people can get to question them. People can get to, what are your intentions? What are you planning to do? Naturally, all politicians they make promises. That's natural. So we expect that from everyone. And friendly countries, no matter who come in, whether it's their first time, whether they have been there before, they get help from other countries. So I believe Dominica, we have what it takes. We have people, whether, as I said, they're new, their first time to the political arena, or they've been there. We have what it takes. We have what it takes. But the electorate, the citizenry, we have to make these people account. It is said that all politicians are corrupt. I don't believe that. I believe, however, people can, when they go in the arena, they can be tempted, they can be influenced. But you know what I have concluded, and other persons have said that crisis and leadership bring out who you really are. So if when you get there, you misbehave, that was who you really were in the first place. But if to sit here and say we do not have good people in Dominica that can take Dominica forward, I would be saying my God is a liar, because he provides. True. We once we avail ourselves, the very same way people like you and Alvin and many others are advocating and crying out for Dominica. It may not be their gift to go in public office, but it means there are still some people in the land that really concerned and want better for Dominica. There are still people who want us to go to a higher level, a higher standard, and come out of the position that we're in. Yes, we can do it. I believe so.
True. There's a follow-up I have for you, Rosie. There's a follow-up in that we are really getting down to the nitty-gritty of things here tonight. As a follow-up, do you think that there are persons outside of the political realm now. You call them advocates or whatever they are, whoever they are. Could be, that's the key phrase here, could be making a much more meaningful contribution to country than those we have now.
Yes, I believe so. God always raises up people at different points. Some people don't even know now because they've not yet been called. But it is God who endows us with gifts and talents and abilities. So I believe across the nation, on both sides, on all sides, there are people who God will raise up. But the rest of us, we must be willing to push and stand up and fight for a level playing field. Because some of the persons who are out there who want to make a contribution, they're not bother going to come because the playing field is not level. So why I don't like to lose. True. I don't like to lose it. And if I know I'm going in a game and it's already tainted, my opponent has an advantage, an unfair advantage, I don't want to participate.
True.
So yes, there are people, their hearts are burning within them. I want to do this. I want to do this, but the climate as it is, and not everyone will at this point push no matter what.
True. Thank you very, very much, Rosie. Thank you very much indeed. I can see Alvin smiling. Alvin, we have 3 minutes to 7 o'clock. Anything you want to point out for that?
I want to quickly make 2 brief comments, if I may. The first one I want to make is in response to what you asked, Rosie, about whether we'll see electoral reform. And she pretty much answered it in my tagline. Elections have, what is it, Lofty?
Consequences.
That's my tagline. Elections have consequences. So she's absolutely right on target when she says to you that if we do not have electoral reform, everything else will not matter. The economy will not grow, education will suffer, health will suffer, everything else is going to suffer. So it is absolutely important that we get this right this time around. Elections have consequences. That has to be our tagline moving forward. The second point I want to make is very quickly, as it relates to the question you asked, whether there are persons. Yes, I agree with her too. There are enough persons in Dominica, like Rosie herself and many others, yourself, many others, and to a certain extent, some of us in the diaspora, who wants to see better, who wants to see well to Dominica, and who is willing, ready, and available to contribute to that. And she is so right when she said, what brings out the character of an individual or leader is crisis and leadership. That tells you who a person is. And let me give you a classic example. In 1979, we had a political crisis. In May of 79, we had a huge political crisis in the country. And guess what? 3 months later, that very same year, in August of 79, we had another natural crisis. Hurricane David, a Category 5 hurricane, devastated the country. And we had a government came into office the following year in 1980. A government that had a vision, that had a leadership in the person of Dame Eugenia Charles. And the rest is history. How she steered this country from a crisis, a political crisis, and a natural crisis, inherited that in 1980. And that same year, 1980, we had another Hurricane Allen. And she took the leadership and we saw what happened. She went into office and we never had all this Sugar-9 and all this corrupt dealings with elections going on. She served 3 terms. In 95, people say, well, hey, we've had enough of you, we want to change. And they had a change. But since these gangsters, if I may use that word on your show, on the show, Lofty, have taken over the administration of this country, we have been faced with what we have today. So I think Rosie is right on the money. I guess the next question, which will follow as we go into the second part of the program, what do we do? The action part of it now. And that is where I believe if you ask me, Lofty, and I hope you don't get mad with me for that, I think there are women now in Dominica that are going to have to take the charge and come forward and lead the charge of that change. And as I said in the earlier opening of my comments, over the years in history, throughout the world, we have seen where women have taken charge and lead movements. And I think the time is coming for that to happen again in Dominica.
So I must listen intensely to what my granny was telling she. Whatever they come on, do not despair, typical grandmother.
All right, Dominica, we're going to take that much needed break now at 7 o'clock.
Say a little prayer, God does never give us more than we can bear. So I woke up this morning, find myself singing.
This one from Father Bricks, keep the candles burning.
In all these crimes and madness, Papa God will choose to guide us. Keep the candles burning.
Folks, yes, please share the live.
Keep the candles burning. So there'll be no more murder and suicide. We put our petty differences aside. Boy, a new direction for the nation to the next millennium. So tell me, do you believe in miracles? Then light a candle. If we ever make no.
Let's say a little prayer for our country, Dominica, says Father Bricks John in song. He did that one all the way back in 1999.
Well, Granny's so full of faith, her trust in God you cannot shake. And to her, he is the greatest of all the greats. Not even the volcano, she don't even pray the blow. She said she lived here long enough to know. We lived through all kinds of disaster. We lost a lovely Lion River. Through the where they blew again and again. Yet we've survived so many hurricanes. Outside forces never control we stand proud even in poverty. There is no country that is more resilient than we. Oh, so I woke up this morning, found myself singing this song.
Yes, Dominicans, let's keep that good old candle burning for our country, Dominica.
And restore security and peace.
That is what we at Civic Vibes do here each and every Sunday from 6 o'clock in Dominica. We are keeping the candle burning, as it were. We hope you are keeping yours lit as well.
Minimize loss of life and property. Oh, a new direction for the nation to the next millennium.
That is the punchline here. A new direction for this country.
You will live in miracles. The lights of
That is what this conversation is getting. Let's get back to the live panel now. It is already 5 minutes past that good old hour of 7 o'clock. Rosie, we're back. Alvin, you're back. Alvin, I don't know if you want to take some comments from the live feed. There are many comments here. Take some. Folks, remember the numbers to call: 245-2396, 615-9470. It's your time now. Yes, Alvin.
Yes, Lofty. The feed is burning. It's burning. It's burning. It's keeping the candle burning. We have Everlasting Peter says, Rosie Felix and Simeon Joseph are the best candidates to educate us for our civic duties. There may be others, but these two are way up there. They are true patriots. Keep up the good work. Cyrus Raphael said, I'm tuning from Los Angeles area of Southern California. We have Dorian Dorival saying, this young lady is great as usual. Continue to fight for Dominica, its people. And then we have Chiquito Thomas saying that's true, but people cannot sit back and wait for just one set of people to do it. Everybody have to stick together as one to make it happen. So the comments are coming, very positive comments, I must say. And I think what the common thread there is that involvement, engagement. That seems to be what's coming across. They're all commending Sister Rosie for the comments that she is making, but at the same time, they're saying, hey, we got to roll up our sleeves, we got to get engaged, we got to participate to bring about the change.
Yes, indeed. Let me see if I can take some comments here as well. Adeline Shillingford is writing here, great contribution and discussion, Rosie Felix. Well done. Very proud moment indeed. Ferdinand Lawrence writing here, this lady should already be a mouthpiece of any opposing this government. Lauren Lestrade writes, excellent in terms of the conversation that has been had here. Cecilia John Baptist Cook writes, yes, they refuse to engage in debates. Ashby Scotland writes, true that, Sister Rosie. Cecilia Joseph Cook again said, excellent contributions, Rosie. Brother David Joseph says, a country will only develop when you have a regular change in leadership. Until and unless the people of Dominica comes to that realization, Dominica is doomed. He spelled that doomed in caps to basically reinforce his point. Peter Carbon says, the first process in the election of a PAL rep is in the process of candidate selection by the constituency association. He being a former...
And Lofty, stick
yes.
a pin on that one. Stick a pin on that. Let's expand. Let's expand on that a little. And maybe Sister Rosie, because that is so fundamental in a democracy as well. You notice in China and in dictatorships, Xi Jinping and the heads is who decide who goes where and what. In a democracy, as you've known it in the past, in all the other elections we've had with the United Workers' Party, under the True Labour Party, under the Freedom Party, representatives come from the constituency.
Yes.
Did you ever have a prime minister saying, well, I'm going to put Rosie Felix up or Loftus Duran up? Or
never in our history.
Never in our history. So maybe Sister Rosie might want to make a brief comment on that as we move on.
You're muted, Rosie.
Yes, in the democratic process, the constituents must have a say in who they want to represent them. And if you just put someone on them, you push a candidate on them, they have no say, then do I believe the constituents always have a say? Again, because, and I like to go back to this intimidation and bribery and buying people, violating people's dignity. So that takes away their freedom and their confidence to stand up and say, no, we don't want this candidate. You're not pushing a candidate on us. We will decide. So if Party X supporters say we want this candidate and Party Y say we want this, then these two candidates will vie for the position of parliamentary representative, and if people are happy, then they'll go to the poll and vote who they want. But when you just push someone on them, among themselves, they're fighting, they don't want that candidate, but you know what they end up doing, because they've been bought and they're violating their own rights. They go back to the polls and they elect the very person that was shoved on them. Our people are hypocrites, On one end, they say they don't want this person who was shoved on them. We hear it all the time, people in-house quarreling. We don't want this one, we don't want that one. This one was doing all the work, and suddenly they put this one, they change this one, they reset. And then people go back, and people just don't stand up for their rights ordinarily. And when we get to the national level, they are impotent.
Yeah. Good point so far, Rosie. Let me just get back to the comments here. Zed Lloyd says, thank you, Sister Rosie. Ivenia Joseph said, present teachers, let the education flow. The only question is, if it's for the people of Dominica, why is it so difficult to clean the voters list? and agree to the recommendations already given, do they really care? That's an all-important question Ivina is asking there. Dorian Dorival writes, when people are blinded by handout, Dominica will get nowhere soon. Ashby Scotland writes, well said, Lofty. Petra Carbon says, exactly, Lofty. A manifesto holds the government accountable. Let me see if I could just get a fresh name here. Ferdinand Lawrence writes, imagine Dominica and its economy if every citizen was given a $250,000 out of that 70 million spent by the Dominica Labour Party campaign. Yes. Petra Carbon writes, I agree with Miss Rosie on a Bible illustration. Bribery prevents honest behavior and actions. Great discussion indeed. Brother Joseph says, when Judge Glasgow said in his ruling that, open quote, there was a patent non-compliant with the Dominica's election laws, close quote, in the 2019 election, it meant that the government at the time was illegitimate. He continues by saying, I therefore find it interesting that some people are saying that the recent sham elections was a legal election and not a sham election as most people see it. Catherine George said, imagine that. I want to agree with her in terms of exactly what she's saying. Imagine that, I guess, on the monies that we're talking about spent by the Dominican Labour Party. Marshall Lawrence writes, the one familiar with the sheep, like a shepherd or someone familiar with leading, directing, managing, and overseeing persons, not a novice or inexperienced individual. Good evening to all. And the list goes on and on. Brother Everlasting Peter is saying hi and hello to us as well. Chiquito Thomas writes, we never had a debate between the opposition. Where are you, Chiquito? Yeah, between the opposition and the prime minister, so we know where they stand. Rosie Nice writes, last election, the president's coolers were shoved into a different constituency without getting the votes. Tony Mitchell, writes, and good night, Miss Rosie and Mr. Joseph and the rest of the panel. Well, there's no Mr. Joseph there tonight, Mr. Mitchell, so you maybe have something, twisted here. You have Mr. Thomas, all right? Any more that comments here that we need to touch? Yeah, Angela Paul writes, we need Father Blanca. I want to think it's Father Branca you want to write here, to burn some candles for us to get the people on the road every month end. All right, folks, these are the comments that I'm seeing here now. Those of you who may make other comments that I'm not seeing, I apologize, but that is what I'm seeing here now. Rosie, any of the comments that I mentioned here, you really want to zero in on any one or two or three of them before we continue?
The accountability aspect where people must hold their leaders accountable, and even among the leaders, holding their chief leader accountable. There are many people I respect, and I see them, join the Labour Party government, and that's what's been before us for the last 20 years. And I respect these people, but I wonder, will they be able to challenge your leader? Because when people, and I'll give you an example, when Caressa was running for elections the very first time, I said to him, so I know this, I love the story of Queen Esther. I often call myself Queen Esther. And if you're familiar with this story, Queen Esther, she was a Jew, but she found herself in the house of the king, and she kept that, a secret. But it was the Lord's doing so that she could free her people. So she agreed to go. She had her uncle's backing, and she agreed to go. And when it was time for her to save her people, she said, I'll go. If I perish, I perish. So, yes, there are people who they join, you look at them, they untainted, and you have the hope that they will go and they will make a breakthrough. They will rescue the people. But then why do they not? Why do they not? I want to believe it's because when they're either afraid, which that is one of the things, but people who are afraid don't go in public office. If you're afraid, you don't go there. You can't be afraid and go in public office. But if you've been bought, if you are being paid to run, can you imagine challenging your leader, asking your leader to account? And I'm not even talking in public, in private. If you're asking your leader to account, because the accounting begins with those in the leadership as well. When the leader is taking is dominating the decisions, and the newcomers or even old timers are not asking for accounting, who are the followers? They're not seeing their leaders, they're not seeing their representatives asking anybody to account, and so they just fall in line. We also have where opposition leaders are asking, government to account, but for many years we have just been downright ignored. So what do? We have to come together, as a force, and demand accountability. And if you cannot give us accountability, then we have to change you. And if the process, it takes us back to the process is tainted, then we have to change the process.
Rosie, that's a good point you made, and I want to compliment you and commend you on it. Just to go back a bit, though, you said, or you alluding to the point earlier, that when Caressa was going up, and you asked the question, how can quote unquote good people not perform as they take up that responsibility to serve persons? Because what we have been seeing from these quote unquote good people are just sort of, towing the line or going in the flow, as it were. These people, Rosie, I came up with something the other day, and I just want to, punch it here. It is the pancake or baking pan, rather, the baking pan mentality. Rosie, you're a housewife, and you should know, if you bought a perfect pan to bake a cake, let's take, for example, a square pan, whatever ingredients you put in there, soft as it is, you go in the oven, you put it in the oven, it comes out hard. The end product, Rosie, will always take the shape of that pan. Where we are in Dominica is that pan has been in your calbusi. There's a dent in that pan. And so anything you put in that pan, that dent pan, it take the end product, takes the shape of that pan. And so that is what we have been having. So persons who are quote unquote good, they have the good ingredients, the good characteristics, the good traits, they go in there. But they are going into a process now that is, as the CCJ said, and Alvin keeps repeating it, it is tainted. The processes that they get there, it is tainted. Our elections, you said, Rosie, they are not genuine. The people are not really and truly having their will done.
Well, okay, I agree with you, but again, I wanted to give Caressa the benefit of the doubt, and I say, Caressa, I can't call you Queen Esther. You are King Caressa. Go in and save your people. And it seems like he perished too.
That's what I'm telling you. So he went into that, figuratively speaking, dent pan position, and the end product is in your calbose. So he cannot truly represent now the needs of the Marigot people. And that's what it is. And so that is why now, Rosie, I need to ask you now, where we are politically speaking now, especially where the opposition forces are concerned, do you think that there is this need for some kind of change? I know when we talk change in Dominica, we're talking about government and the clan. I know that. But do you think that there is need for some change in the opposition forces, modus operandi, the opposition forces works, the opposition forces inspiration, the opposition forces outlook on a whole, so that to give, whenever the next election is called, I don't know, that sort of overwhelming hope, that sort of overwhelming confidence that yes, there is this set of people that have been carefully crafted, carefully chosen by the constituents, as Peter Carbon said. And that is the set of people that will, quote unquote, salvage what is left of Dominica and bring us, as it were, to the political promised land where Dominica really needs to be.
Lofty, there's always room for improvement. And with improvement brings change. But I see the greater change happening in the people who want that change, and across the board. The people who are not happy, but they're afraid. They want it desperately. They want it more than you and me, but they are lying low. I'm seeing the biggest change is to happen among the electorate, to come out in large numbers and say, we are fed up. I don't know what, to be honest, I don't have an idea or suggestion at the top of my head what the opposition parties can do that will change. They change leaders, and then we did not participate in the last, we obeyed the call not to participate in the last election. And look at where is the people to come out and for us to get that electoral reform that we want, that we need. I honestly don't know what the opposition, even if they unite, they come together, and the Mr. Scary, the IPM, he's gotten away with so many things. And if he gets away with a tainted electoral reform, who are we to blame? The opposition leaders? We have to blame ourselves. So it's people. The change we need is for people to stop embracing the grasshopper mentality. You know what's the grasshopper mentality? Again, I go back to the scriptures, and for how I love that particular passage. I keep forgetting what book I can find it, where the Israelites, a group of them was sent. They had to rescue, to take back a certain land that God had given them, but it was possessed by their enemies. So they sent a few of them to go and, to basically survey, and so they could plan.
Yes,
right, what strategy they would take. And they came back and say, the land is healthy, it's fruitful, it's this, is that. And they said, but they saw there are giants there, and they see themselves like grasshoppers. But so we have to change that grasshopper mentality. We're afraid to speak, we're afraid to work, we're afraid to get married, we're afraid to go in business, we're afraid to travel, we're afraid to do everything.
Let's take a call. Someone is on this line here, the 245 line. Caller, good evening. You're on.
Yes, good evening, Lofty and other guests. Great discussion tonight. I love it. I just want to say, using a Bible reference as Miss Rosie, when the God was up in above, the Bible tells us, the people came together and they say they want to make reach up to heaven. And they put their resources and their mind together, and they decided they're going to do it. God had to come down and scatter the people, because the people had one mind. So they were going to do what they had to do. So it's the same with our people in Dominica. We have to have one mind so that we can make things better. If we have half people pulling here, we will never have that change that we are calling for, because majority of the people are not in for the change. So the people have to have that mindset Let us do it together, corporately. Yes, we have different beliefs, but right now, at present, we have a situation in Dominica, and we need all hands on deck. And we have to put that party business aside. Yeah, workers there, team unity there, freedom there. But right now, none of us cannot win by ourselves. So we have to come together as a cooperative people to do what we have to do, not only for ourselves, but for the rest of the country on a whole. So this is my contribution tonight for the people. People will let us wake up and let us work together. When we have our heads in one basket, we are a force that people cannot reckon with. So let us put ourselves together. Yes, I want to come down back to Dominica. But when I come back to Dominica, I have to come and work in the system where people have to tell me I cannot talk. I used to be working Dominica, when I speaking about the ill that happening, they tell me, oh, hush them off there before they transfer you to somewhere else. I tell them, well, I will still talk. They can transfer me everywhere. They can transfer me in Dominica. I have family everywhere. I'll say somewhere. And that is the mentality of our people. So great program, Lofty, great program, Alvin and Miss Rosie. Continue doing the great job, and we will pray for you, and we'll pray for Civic vibes, so they continue to do and enlighten the people. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, caller. Indeed. Rosie, the caller basically spoke of the purpose of unity. She mentioned the situation of Nimrod and this Tower of Babel, where the persons there doing one accord. And it had to take the big man himself to come down and do something, because he realized, but wait a minute, these people are serious. And that shows that when a people are united, they can move mountains.
But let me
what we need.
Let me just make a quick interjection there. I know, Rosie, I'm going to allow her to come in, but you asked a question a few minutes ago, the political forces. And I think as we have that conversation, it's kind of important. The words we use, how we use it, what connotation it has, and one might say the narrative, put it this way. Because I'm sure, Lofty, as I know from our conversation, when we speak of the political forces, we're not speaking of quote-unquote political parties. Because where we are now in Dominica is beyond a political party issue. And I think Rosie says it quite well when you ask about electoral reform. Elections have consequences. So therefore, to take us out where we are and to ensure we have a good election and we have the right people, how does that impact the businesses in Dominica? So the business sector who is silently complaining because one, they have high taxes when they bring their goods, they have to pay high duties. Two, they don't have an enabling environment that allow their business to survive, and you find outside companies coming and competing better than them. You have all of those indigenous, one you might say local hoteliers that we had before, the Evergreens, the whatever, you name it, all of them on the West Coast there. You don't have that anymore. The businesses are shutting down. Education, you have all of those things. So I believe that rather than even calling it political forces, is a movement. It's now a movement of forces and interested civic organization. And what tyrants do and dictators do, they marginalize and undermine institutions in the society. So they will dismantle the Electoral Commission, as you see they did. So the conversation now on electoral reform is not with the Electoral Commission, as you may have heard. Everything is centered around Skerrit, a prime minister, and he has chosen a political person from his political party, Daru, to lead the discussion. Where on earth have you ever heard that? So the electoral process and the electoral machinery, the Electoral Commission is compromised. I'm saying so very cautiously, but the legal system may be compromised. So people don't feel that, there is justice in the system. I mean, you have members of the opposition party for the last 5 years keep going to a court to hear a matter that cannot be determined? 5 years and going. What is so technical about the case that the matter can be heard and say, okay, the evidence before says you are guilty, the evidence says you're not guilty, case done. 5 years. So the system is compromised, the judicial system. Some question the churches. So what these tyrants do, they undermine those institutions: business, legal, education, academics. So now it's a movement that has to come together. And as Rosie said, and I tend to agree with her too, there are a lot of silent sufferers because they are so scared and intimidated to come forward and speak. And if some of us speak, we are ostracized, we are ostracized, we are victimized. So we just have to continue speaking. And I'm so glad and I'm so happy that we have persons like Sister Rosie and the many others who are coming forward and will come forward and speak on those issues. And hopefully we can change some hearts, we can change some minds, and we can take this country back and put it on a right track of development. I just wanted to make those comments.
And if I should add to that about the institutions, since the Millennium Development Goals have been published a few years now, one of those goals, that's my favorite, is strengthening of institutions. And we have seen the exact opposite, a strategic move to weaken all institutions across the board. But if you ask what can the opposition forces do, which does not only refer to political parties, I would speak to those institutions with the grasshopper attitude to get off their butts and join the movement. And let's get the change done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Alvin, you want to go ahead? You're saying something?
No, I was just agreeing with Rosie. I said, absolutely. It's a movement. And we have now to get on board, like she says, those of us who are brave enough and committed enough and fearless enough to come forward and join the movement and to speak on those issues. And that takes me to the question of electoral reform, that I am aware as we speak that there is a grouping or a body known as the Electoral Reform Coalition that is spearheading discussion on the electoral reform. And I believe this is the process that should take. And all other civic-minded organization, the Bar Association should join forces with the ERC. The business sector should join forces with the ERC. The trade union should join forces with the ERC. The churches should join forces with the ERC. Political parties join forces with the ERC. And all civic organizations in collaboration with the Electoral Commission. Those conversations must be done in discussion with the Electoral Commission and move forward the question of electoral reform. That, in my view, is what needs to happen, and that is where the movement needs to focus and ensure that we get electoral reform through the engagement and the participation of those various organizations and individuals.
All right, thank you very much, Alvin. Aileen Burton, one of us here at Civic Vibes, she's writing here, great points made. No manifesto, no voting. Ban all the gifts. Rosie also is very much on point. Pertinent issues mentioned. People vote for the day and not for the future in Dominica. That is a point here. Thank you very much, Ms. Burton, for your sentiments expressed here on the program here. Let me see if I could get back to some of the comments on the live feed. We have one by the name of October's very own. A number of comments here, but I'll just take at least one. That person says, DLP have no morals and principles, so why should we? We have to fight this enemy on their own ground. massive mobilization. Leave your morals at home in the US and find a way home and come and vote this man out. Rosie Nice writes, right now we need to forget about party and party colors and come together. We at this juncture has nothing to lose. Some of the sentiments expressed here on the program as we are moving on. All right. Petra Carbon writes as well, exactly, Alvin, electoral process can't be political because it becomes bias. All right. These are some of the sentiments expressed here. Folks, it is already 23 minutes to the of 8 o'clock. So we are basically staring down the finish line, as it were. But Rosa, you mentioned a point earlier about the people, where basically I got from you, the onus is on the people to come together to effect that change that we so desire in Dominica. Question to you on that point, though, is that how would you prescribe that we meet the people? Where do you prescribe we meet the people in terms of getting that message through to the people that the onus is on them to effect that change so that Dominica could benefit?
Well, certainly the use of the media is already well established, but there are many people who do not have access to the media platform that is commonly used. So again, that takes us to one of the reasons why we do not have free and fair election. We do not have, and not only political parties, but as it is now, but even movements like the coalition for electoral reform. Do you have free access to the state-owned radio? No. So we need to reach out to the people in their communities, whether we use, just like when you're promoted the last rally, you all had to go out using PA systems and go out to people in their various communities. Some persons say they never heard. They didn't hear it on the radio, and they still didn't hear it in their community. But that is where we have to go in droves to the various communities, so that every nook and cranny, the people hear the message, and those who really, really, really want to come out. Again, provision was made. If I recall, transportation. Some people really do not have, what it takes for the transportation. So it means providing transportation and pressing that message again. And many people heard the message, but the same factor of fear. So we have to find a way to unravel that fear and get people to realize, well, as long as you remain afraid, you'll remain in your miserable country. People have to wake up. People have to stop being afraid. Some people are even afraid to listen, Some people don't want to be seen following a life that Civic Vibes is doing. They don't want to be seen or heard listening to Q95 where the message is. And I suspect even when you go out to the communities, people, they'll stay inside their house but they'll be listening nonetheless. So we have to go out in the communities and spread the word everywhere. And even if it means providing written information as well. And it's a grassroots movement where the message must reach all.
Yeah. So basically, in a nutshell, I'm getting from you that there must be some sort of innovative ways, creative ways to meet the people where they are, so that message or messages can resonate.
Correct.
Yeah. Rosie, the whole idea of civics, I think the expulsion or eviction of civics from our educational curriculum in Dominica, that has played a part to contribute to where we are today as a people. I'm not that old. When I hear people like, okay, let's see if we can engage that caller. caller. Yes, good evening. You're on the program Civic Vibes.
Good evening, Lofty, and good evening, Arvin, and Nurse Rosie. Good evening, my nurse. This song so sweet, love. I have to see the face on the. I'm looking at it on not WhatsApp. What's the other one you have there? Not Facebook, but
YouTube.
YouTube is, yeah. But look, a question that is a simple question for Miss Rosie, because if we answer that question, then we will demand a manifesto. People cannot come and represent you and they never have a debate. The question is that why are we supposed to vote? For what reason we are voting? Is it for a galvanize, or to get a promotion, or to get a duty free? What is the reason? What do you want from your vote? I think we have to ask ourselves that question first, Lofty. And I want to make another point, because I hear Alvin talks about the $72 million for the campaign. In that reform, it is proposed that we should have a campaign period. But in Dominica, you know, the Prime Minister has the right to call the campaign anytime he feels like. And as far as I'm concerned, Roosevelt Skerritt always campaigning. So who is going to determine the campaign period? I think Alvin might help me on this one. Because if he know when he's going to call the election, and he could start spending money 2-3 years ahead, because he know exactly when the election going to call. Now that is why I believe we should have a fixed date for election. But that again, that has to be done by our constitution, by amending the constitution. But I think first to have effective finance campaign reform, we have to look at the constitution, because I don't see how it's gonna work. Yeah, that's it, love. I'm listening. I'm trying to get you for a long time, but I was calling the wrong number, man. Alvin,
Hey.
this is my brother.
Good
All right,
evening.
my brother. Thank you. Thank you
Good
very
evening.
much. Thank you for your contribution tonight. Yes.
Yes. Well, let me just respond very quickly, though.
Yes, sure.
The caller is right on target. And I think campaign financing is a major issue that has to be looked at in any reform. And as he rightly said, the question of term limits and any of those provisions requires some sort of constitutional amendment. So, and herein lies the big question too. And that is one of the educating that we have to do. Some people feel once you cast your vote, your responsibility or your duties have ended. It's an ongoing process. It's not a start and an end finish there. Democracy, for it to thrive, your electoral process has to be ongoing. It's ongoing. Now, on the question of the spending limits, again, we can have certain legislations put in place that do a number of things. One, set certain limits on candidates and on parties. So you could say, for example, no candidate should get monies in excess of $200,000 or whatever that figure is. No party should get monies in excess of that. But in addition to that, there must be disclosure. Again, transparent. We mentioned free, fair, and transparent election. So whatever money is coming in must be transparent. And then, of course, one of the other issues we have, not just with this electoral reform, but in general, enforcement of the legislations. So we can have all the well-written legislations on the books. If they're not being enforced, or we the people don't ensure that they are enforced, it means nothing. So it's a question of legislation and enforcement and having certain stipulations as it relates to campaign financing. But I think he's right on the money. We have to have those things in place. So that way it becomes transparent. One of the things with snap elections, it's never a good thing. It's never a right thing to do. If you are a government that know you're doing right to the people and you are performing the way you're performing, there shouldn't be no need to call a snap election. You serve your 5 term, and when your term is up, you come back to the people and say, well, hey, I promised that I would do X, Y, and Z for you during my 5-year term. I have done so much. I was not able to do X, Y, and Z because of whatever. But I'm asking you to entrust me with another 5 years, and the people will give it to you they want it. But the mere fact of calling the snap election, you the prime minister holding that date in your back pocket, is not good for democracy. So clearly these are issues that have to be looked at as we move forward with our electoral process. And again, let me reiterate, it is not an event that starts this week, get the reform, ends next week, and that's the end of it. It's constant vigilance, constant looking, constant engagement, constant involvement of the people.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alvin, for your points here and responding to the last caller. Rosie, I was asking you a question about the whole idea about the non-inclusion anymore of civics in our educational curriculum. That's been some time. The reason I'm asking you that question is when I speak to, persons who are up in age, they always refer to some things that they remember, some things that are very dear to them. But these things that they refer to were all imparted in their system because of they were exposed to that kind of civic-minded conversation or even curriculum in the past. That is no more. How do you think that has played, or if it has played, a role to where we are today?
I'm happy you asked the question, because one of the characteristics and principles of free and fair election, which actually have in my notes, is education and civic awareness campaigns are important to empower voters and enhance their participation in that process. And as a direct result, from the lack of that education and civic awareness, is the reason we are where we are today. And many persons who've had that education, who have that information in the days when it was provided, it's unfortunate how these people have just done a 180 turn, like they never got this civic education, and they completely, they have a corrupt civics now, pushing a corrupt civics agenda, pushing, and that's what people are believing, because they've been made to depend now. You don't have $1, so if I give you $1, you better be my student, irrespective of what I'm teaching you. The civics I'm teaching you, it is not civics as we know it. So that's exactly where we are. Many people do not know. What you ask them, what is free and fair election? What do we mean? And if you have to break it down, some people don't want the voters ID card in election. Why? Because they want to take away that part of making, which is a critical part of free and fair election, where people should only vote once. But if people feel comfortable, well, I want my party to win at any cost, and it doesn't matter if I vote twice. It's just, then you brainwash people. But if we have that civics awareness and civic education, people will not just fall for that false agenda that is in keeping with what they want, their winning legacy, or their corrupt legacy, I dare say.
Yeah, thanks. Rosie, we always end on a very high note, and that ending note is usually a call to action aspect right here on Civic Vibes. So we don't just leave all people with information, which boils back to education, but we always leave them with something that they can do. They can help in the process of whatever we have been discussing. So that question or that situation will come at you in just a while as we sum up the discussion here. But Alvin, you being a senior man, a senior statesman, as it were, can you tell us, how did civics play a part in Alvin's life, so that Alvin is where he's at today? Civics.
Oh, it played a tremendous part in my life, and I'm sure folks who of my age group can and speak to that. I mean, one of the areas that we mentioned, and Rosie quite rightly spoke about, was the question of debates. No debates. I mean, that was something during my years at SMA as an old boy SMA. There was a lot of debates. We did that at a school level, an inter-school level, meaning that within SMA itself, we had debates among our various houses at the SMA. We had debates with other schools like grammar school, public speaking. I mean, you had all of those events taking place in the school. And in addition to that, of course, you had our own involvement in a number of Boy Scouts, youth groups, you name it. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So that played a very integral part in how we as young men growing up then responded in terms of our responsibility, not just to ourselves, but to society. I mean, I always mentioned, and I may have mentioned it before, you may recall, Lofty, at the St. Mary's Academy during 1973, a situation developed there where the students then felt we were being treated unfairly, unjustly at the time during my tenure. And we stood up as a student body. We stood up and we said, hey, we are not going to take this. We are going to stand up against that injustice, which we felt it was at the time. And you know what happened? The rest is history. That created a whole change in the whole structure and the management of the school. You had similar incident like that at the grammar school, I recall, where students would have stood up and say, hey, we're not taking this. And bear in mind, Lofty, at the time in 73, I was still maybe, I think, in fourth form or thereabout. You taking those positions because of how you were oriented and your thought process, contrary to what your parents at the time, you know. So, you know, so that fear factor wasn't even there, you know, to say, well, boy, I'm not going to stand up with the rest of the student body because what my mom or dad will say. So clearly it played a major role in who we are today. And I would hope that the young people growing up today would instill and have that kind of, you know, thing in them. But let me just end though and say, we now, those of us like myself, and maybe I could add Rosie to it, have a responsibility now to share and impact some of that to the young people. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes we make the points and we call on young people and believe that they should just rise and do this thing on their own. Yes, they have a mind of their own as well, but I think they need some direction from persons like ourselves who can impact certain wisdom, knowledge, and intelligence into how and what they do and how they go about taking action. So that would be my response on that.
True. And just to wrap up on that whole civic engagement or the value of civics, as it were, the study of civics is basically the rights and responsibilities of citizens to any country. So that we are saying or agreeing on that point that a citizen of Dominica back then knew much more about their rights and or responsibilities to country. And so you had the people like Alvin and the age group there. They were much more, country was much more close to heart. And so what we are struggling with today would have been a walk in the park back then for Alvin and his clan. Because why? You know, it was inculcated in them that, hey, you have to do something for country. There's a right you're here, and also there's a responsibility that you have to bring out as being a citizen of Dominica. So I'm hoping that, well, I'm not banking on that administration to bring that back. I'm hoping that new breed, that new crop, that innovative leadership that we spoke of, that can give the people hope whenever that team comes around, that at least they can be so infused to bring back the study of civics in school, so that will, sort of benefit us as a country on a whole. Margel Durand wrote something there on civics as we about to go into the call to action aspect of it. Let me see if I can get back to Margel Durand's point. He says here on civics, okay, let me take Omar. Let me take Mr. Omar's point first, and then I'll come to Margel's point. Omar says here, that is Omar Monell, says here, civics is not only limited to the educational system. The conversation, he says, starts at home. Parents telling the family and friends to stay silent throughout the years has erased the social conversations of civics among the population. Margel Durand writes as well, the removal of civics from the curriculum was a deliberate ploy to keep the people in ignorance. All right. Who else we have here? We have a number of other comments here, but in the interest of time, we have like 5 more minutes to wind down. And so, Rosie, yes, how would you want to leave us tonight, leave the many folks who are there tonight, in terms of the topic of freeness, fairness, and transparent election, or genuine elections, that is? They are the foundations of any democratic country. How would you want to tell the many persons who are on the feed with us tonight, what can they do? What advice can you give them so that they too can be part and parcel of that process in having that sort of, democratic rule that we so desire?
Lottie, I think to begin with, we should, people should challenge, and using social media, using mainstream media, and using face-to-face. Begin by challenging those parliamentary representatives now serving us. We consider them illegal, but they're there anyway. And I think at the last rally, if you recall, that I singled out every pal rep.
By the way, Rosie, you have that poem now?
Yes, it's available.
There? Well, no, trust me, we have to have it.
I still need music to it.
If it is there, we'll have it tonight for sure. Once it's available.
Okay, I'll have to pull it up on the phone.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we should challenge each person, whatever side of the fence you are. Call up that parent. Use social media, Facebook them, tag them, and just flood social media and let those parliamentary representatives know, because they don't seem to, either they're not concerned, or they do not have it in them to tell their boss, give the people. Now, I agree it is not the government to give it. So that takes me to the next point. We should also have a campaign where we put pressure on the Electoral Commission. And tonight I want to call Mr. Duncan Stowe by name. Mr. Duncan Stowe, do the honorable thing. All of us across the board should be calling and using social media. And if it means we have to put, sometimes when we come to a rally, we have to make placards, but put it out in the public eyes. Let everybody turn. Let's use banners and just, when there's an election, you see banners and flyers all over the place. Well, that should be the electoral reform campaign, putting pressure on the powers, putting pressure on the Electoral Commission. And then finally, between the coalition for electoral reform and the political parties, we should present to the Electoral Commission what we want. Whether we take in from the luminary gone dark, whether we take in from that document or not, but what we want, what is it we want? Present it to the commission, and even before they are ready to tell us that they're going ahead with it, we should have that movement on the street. Let people, let the government see, let the electoral commission see that people, we are serious. Otherwise, we're going to be taken for granted again. The Labour Party has gotten away with so much. If they get away with this, it's not crapo that's smoking our pipe, no crapo burning us.
I know.
So that is the action, and the grasshopper mentality, the fear mentality. People need to purpose in their mind. You know, something of a lot of our population, and we see it on social media, they are confident, they're not afraid, they're strong. All the positive vibes, not afraid vibes. But what that matters most to us, we are afraid, and it is eating us up. It is eating up our families. It is eating up our nation. We have to take action and prevent it. We have to take action and prevent it. And when the coalition calls for action, people should come out. I don't know what for the political parties to do, but when the coalition calls, people still holding back. The more they hold back, the more they oppress. The more they hold back, the more they don't get appointment. The more they hold back, the more their salary don't increase. The more they're afraid, they're just there. People, get up. And if you're complimenting this person, oh, this person is brave, and this, hey, let us go. Let's all be brave, and let's do what we got to do to save Dominica.
True. Thank you very, very much indeed, Rosie. Nice way to sort of bring a wrap to the conversation here, but we want to crown the conversation, as it were, with that poem. So if you can pull it up, let us get that. Alvin, any thoughts whilst Rosie's pulling up that poem?
No, I think Sister Rosie has really you know, heat on every cylinder. I'm trying to figure out if there's a cylinder that's not firing. The car is firing on every cylinder. What do you want me to do, Lofty? But no, she's right. She's absolutely right. And I think too, one of the things we have to keep in mind as we move forward with the movement, yes, we know the problems, and there's several of them. We've identified them. But let's try to focus a lot on the solutions in terms of what can we do? What can we do as a people? And we got to start from where we are. Sometimes we're looking for this big, huge, whatever it is. Let's start from where we are. And like they say sometimes is that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can walk and chew gum. So let us do some of the practical things. And I like the idea that she made. That's one of my thought processes as well. That by now the ERC should put together what the ERC considers the People's Report, which is basically what it is, the People's Report on Reform, and present that to the Commission. But I think, like she said, we need to put pressure on the people that matter. Mr. Duncan Stowe is not there in his personal and private capacity. He's there representing the Commission and the people. And we, the people, have a right to ask him and demand of him to speak to the people on the matter of electoral reform. So whatever we need to do to ensure that happens, we must go ahead and do it.
All right, Alvin, thank you very much. Rosie, that poem from you that basically lit up the crowd at the rally the last time, as we close.
Reform, we're bound to get it. We need reform. Yes, election reform. Commission not giving it, but we the people coming for it. Watch out, we're bound to get it. Scary don't want to lose no election. All he wants is to steal it. Tony don't want to lose his monetization. So together they tell the commission, don't clean the voters list. Keep it bloated for their tiffin feast. But let we remind them, we need reform. Yes, election reform. Commission not giving it, but we the people coming for it. Watch out, we're bound to get it. Electoral reform is a national must. So get rid of the names of those who have turned to dust. Give us our voters' ID card. Zafedo if that make you go mad. Just don't make us get on bad. In fact, we are warning you. We need reform. Yes, electoral reform. Commission not giving it, but we the people coming for it. Watch out, we're bound to get it. Every democracy embracing electoral reform including campaign financing and voting where you live in. But Dick Taylor want to rule for life, so he prolonging the strife. Even Donkey bury his head in property and passport, not bulging to help stop his partner from behaving sort. So we're serving notice because we need reform. Yes, electoral reform. Commission not giving it, but we the people coming for it. Watch out, we bound to get it. Now let's go to parliament and pass the freaking law. You're not escaping and you're not passing back door. No more bribery, no more trickery, including plane ticket and cool out money. 20 years of your corruption is too long. Give us reform or else we put your tail in song. So Sotila, we need reform. Yes, electoral reform. Commission not giving it, but we the people coming for it. Watch out, we bound to get it. Come 2024, when electoral reform will have finally gotten it done, we will go back to the polls to truly reset Dominica's goals. We will rejoice from Capuchin to Kashaku, and to true progress, Dominica will say, I do. This time we will sing. We have reform, yes, electoral reform. Commission did not give it, so we the people took it. Watch out, never again shall we vote without it. I repeat, never again shall we vote without it. Electoral reform.
Excellent, excellent.
Alvin, we have to give a round of applause.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Well done, well done, well done. Mrs. Felix, I want to thank you on behalf of the many folks listening and watching. Trust me, it was a very productive program tonight. I want to thank you very much. Educational at that, inspiring, motivating, whatever other objectives there are.
Lofty. Don't leave without letting us know we have part 2. That's just part 1.
I know. But I know where to get Rosie, so that is not a problem for part 2, for sure. Rosie, so we just want to thank you on behalf of the folks out there. Really enjoyed the afternoon. And it was a very indeed great time that we had here tonight. Thank you very much for the inspiration that you imparted to all our fans here this evening.
Thank you.
For country.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the opportunity. And thanks to the entire audience for their complimentary sentiments.
Yes. Alvin, any closing thoughts to Rosie before she go?
Well, I too would just like to join you, Lofty, and on behalf of Civic Vibes to say thank you to Rosie and to our many folks who stayed with us till the end. They normally stay till the end. They don't leave. They're glued. So I think it's very inspiring. And like she says, we got to take it one step further. We got to walk the talk, as they say, walk the talk. And like she said, I think there are a number of persons in Dominica who are prepared to do that in and out of Dominica. So again, thank you, Rosie. And we look forward to engaging you again and for us to do the work that is required by the movement on the ground.
Thank you.
All right, Rosie, thank you very much. Do enjoy the rest of the evening, huh?
You too. Thanks a lot.
Don't you know you think you want to be good by the rule? Playing like the big bad wolf, but I'm the wolf catcher. Don't you know I'm the zookeeper? Slide, but you're running up your mouth all over town.
All right, Dominica, that is it for us right here for yet another very interesting program.
You think you're bad? I'm the worst nightmare that you ever had. Yeah. Lord, jealousy applies so high, and we wanna touch the sky.
To all of you who tuned into that all-important discussion, thank you very, very much indeed.
My bad boy, you can't bite me, so big bad rule. You think you are the big bad rule.
We want to again say a special thank you to Mrs. Rosie Felix for gracing us here with her presence tonight.
Don't you know
I'm having an excellent conversation indeed. But what would the conversation be without your company?
Don't you know I'm the zookeeper? Oh, I wanna
So the hundreds, the thousands of folks of you glued in at this time, thank you very much for your eyes and ears.
you can't divide. Come in your house and then meet up your
Let me just move across to Alvin Thomas so he can give us his final bidding for tonight. Alvin.
Yes, bro. Yes, bro. Well, like you said, a very great program. I mean, this lady is just fired up, man. You know, I'll tell you, when I believe it was his first term in office when Barack Obama was running for office, when he started on his campaign trail, he met with a group of young ladies, older ladies in North Carolina, I think it was, in the basement of a church. And that's where he got energized to move forward with his campaign. And their tagline was, "We are fired up and ready to go." These women, they said, "We are fired up and ready to go. Let's go." And with that, Obama hit the campaign trail, and the rest is history. So I can see Sister Rosie is fired up and ready to go. And I know there are several other women like herself, as well as men, who are fired up and ready to roll with the movement. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to get fired up and ready to go. And I'm almost confident that we can see success down the road. So another great program. Thanks again, Lofty. Hope you and all many fans have a good week, and you two have a great week.
All right, Alvin, thank you very much as well for yourself making time of your Sunday to come and help educate the nation. Thank you very much, brother. One love.
You're welcome. Take care, bro. All right.
don't you know I'm the zookeeper?
So Dominica, that is it.
But you're running up your mouth all over town.
To those of you in the region of Footerfield, that is it as well. See you sometime next week, Sunday, same time, same place. Keep it locked to the spot that you got. On behalf of the Civic Vibes team, the producers and the like, thank you very much indeed.
Wanna touch the sky? Who are you to judge me? Back are you a bad boy, you can't buy me. So big bad rule. You think you want to big bad rule? Playing like a big bad rule. Well, I'm the wolf cut. Don't you know I'm the zookeeper? Big bad rule. Think you want to big bad rule? Playing like a big bad rule. Don't you know I'm the zookeeper? Enemies and friends alike. One from another, boy, you can't do.
Brother Nasir Fontaine, you and your lovely family, good evening to you folks, huh?
And when the
Very good conscious music indeed to send us off.
that's what they'll do, yeah. That's what they'll do. Aye. Jealousy fly so high, and we wanna touch the sky. Who are you to judge me? Pack you a bag, but you can't buy me. So big about the wood. You think you are the big about the wood? Playing like the big about wood. Well, I'm the wolf catcher. Don't you know I'm the zookeeper? That's the game. So you think, say you're big and you're bad and you're rough and you're tough. Why? Ask me who I am. Wolf catcher. Now we tell you who I am. I hope that you know. Lord, sticks and stones could break my bones, but you think say you're bad. And then you think say you're bad. So I'm gonna get every revenue.